Ooh, hello. But today we don't really play, oh, that rhymes, we tutorialize. So let me put the guitar away until I need it. So, if you've made it here, I really hope you've watched the GEC8 Live, GEC8 Live, that is Guitar Effects Commander Live, overview. I know it's 40 minutes, but if you're in the market for a switcher like this, these aren't pedals to stomp on, sounds good, thank you. These things are complicated, so you need to make sure that it is the right product for your setup. And you know that it doesn't have features you don't need, so you're paying for stuff you don't need or never will need, or that it might not fit your setup because it's not complex enough. So make sure you watch the overview. Then there's a video where I built the pedal board, so you can watch me do that in time lapse. Then there's the demo. If you've seen the demo, which again is long, you might have noticed that a lot of the times I'm looking at the thing and I've got to think, and I'm like, where am I? What are the lights telling me now? This is a product that you have to spend time with, okay? I'm trying to do this video to help you make this process easier and just eliminate a lot of questions. You will still have some, and Moen is very eager to help, so you can email, you can, of course leave comments here and I will answer if I can. So this is a video manual, let's call it that. I apologize for the, room. It looks kind of messy because I had to make this aluminum bridge so I could put two cameras above the actual product so you can see what I'm doing. I chose a setup that I also have in the demo, which is rather complicated, but we need to push it to the limit so you can see what's possible. Let me go through the board really quickly. I have, can you see that? I think you can see everything, yes. There's a volume pedal here, that's some Ernie Ball. Then there's three Ernie Ball Juniors, which are expression pedals, and they control the left one, the timeline, and these two, the Flint and the El Capistan. I got my tremolo intensity here and my delay mix. So they actually have nothing to do with this. We have in loop number 1, is that correct what I'm doing here? No, let's go through the signal. Guitar goes into the buffered input. I chose that because technically, unless you have, specific kind of wahs or fuzzes, you might want to choose the buffered input. So we have the buffered input. This is the extra pedal that comes with it, which is for shadow presets. And whether this should be on the main pedal or not can be discussed. We've discussed this. I asked Moen, and it might in future editions actually end up on the pedal. So that comes with it, even has a cable, and it's wired in. Then we have the tuner output is going to the TC Polytune. There's no output of that, it just goes through it, and when you engage the foot switch or the mute, everything is muted. No signal going through, and it's going to the tuner, so that's pretty easy. Nice blue LED showing you that, okay? Then in loop number 1, I got two compressors, the more spark and the more yellow comp. That is going straight through to loop number 2, which is in this case the Plexitone and the Indigo. Primarily those pedals, because the Plexitone had to be up here and that was the cable length that I had. Okay, so I can choose either of those, and then when I engage loop number 2, it's one of those pedals depending on which one I picked previously. Then in loop number 3 we have, I'm lying, excuse me, Loop number 2 is the Jetta vibe and the analog chorus. That's what's happening. So loop number 3, loop 2, Jetta vibe and chorus, because the vibe should be before the distortion. Plexitone and indigo fuzz is in loop number 3. Loop number 4 is the Mobile Hornet and the Gold Standard. And loop number 5, which has a mono output and a stereo return for stereo pedals like delays, choruses and reverbs. Maybe even stereo tremolos, that would be cool. So loop number 5 is still distortion in my case, because I wanted that. And I've got the MP Custom Effects Gainium, Gainiac Germanium Edition and the normal Gainiac and the AC Plus all behind each other. And here's the kicker. Loop number 5 has a stereo return. But if there's only something plugged into one of the returns, like in my case because they're mono pedals, you would only be able to use that output. So left return means you can only use left output. There will be no signal present on the right output. Now I thought it would be really cool to have all these distortion and modulation pedals available on 2 different amps. Now it would be nice to be able to bridge left and right return, and just whatever is in left return also is in right return, meaning you have both of them on both outputs. That sadly is not possible. So what I did is, under the board over there is a Morley tripler, which just splits up my signal, and that's right behind the AC Plus, and that goes into yes, I'm sorry. That goes into left and right return, and then left and right output have that present. So I can actually use left and right output and have my whole chain. Is that true? Oh, we'll figure it out. Because I'm thinking, what if loop 5 is not active? Is it still working? I guess we'll find out, huh? It might be that you have to have loop 5 active but without the pedals if you want any of the other pedals to go in stereo. Routing is difficult, isn't it? So, then that's stereo out to the amps. Well, not really stereo. I want to switch between the amps. So one amp is my Laboga Alligator, which is switchable with a tip ring sleeve between channel 1 and channel 2, which is distorted, and channel 2 has 2 gain knobs which you can switch between. So I'm using a, right here, tip ring sleeve cable. Okay, can you see that? In foot switch 1, because there's 2 foot switch outputs, and either you use 2 mono cables, okay, that's pretty straightforward, going into 2 mono inputs on your amp to switch, or if your amp has a stereo input, tip ring sleeve, then you can use just foot switch 1, which will disable foot switch 2 because it's then integrated. Okay, so they're normaled into each other. So this will then be both switches at the same time with 1 cable, which is very neat. Another option, if you have a switcher where that doesn't work, is you can use an insert cable, 2 mono to 1 stereo. Okay, and the right output is going to the Sir Badger right there. That's just 1 channel. And both of these amps have FX inputs, FX loops. So just to show you the options of what's possible, in loop number 7, 6, 7, and 8 are completely independent loops. All of them have their own input and their own output. They're not wired into any of the other signal ways on this thing. They're actually completely independent, and if you want to go from 6 to 7 to 8, you're going to have to use patch cables. Now Moen supplies you with really nice cables. If you want to, you can order those. They're very thin and have beautiful, very tiny heads, so they actually don't eat up a lot of space on your on the back of the GEC8 Live. So what I did is, in this case, loop number 6 is my El Capistan, loop number 8 is my Flint. So I'm going from loop number 6 to 8, so I've got loop number 6 right here, that's in from the center of the amp, then there's the El Capistan here, then I'm going from here, from out to the in of 8, where the Flint is, and then back into the source return. The FX loop of the La Boga I have wired into number 7, which is the timeline. So La Boga FX out goes into 7 in, timeline wired in, and then back into the La Boga, just to show you how complicated this can be. So there's 2 amps right there. One is channel switchable and gain switchable. Both of them have effects in the FX loops, and we got a whole bunch in 5 loops in front of it. Wow. Of course, the Strymon timeline is connected with MIDI right here, so I can switch the programs on it. And there's 2 MIDI outs on the pedal. There's one here and one here. The one on the left says FS, foot switch external, meaning if you have an amp that has a DIN, like a MIDI kind of plug to do the channel switching, you can contact Moen and say, I have this amp, can you configure the pedal, can you configure the GEC8 Live so I can channel switch with that? And yes, they're able to do that. It might be, if you need more than 2 switching functions, that you're losing loop 6, 7 and or 8, because they are also able to use as triggers. But then of course you lose them as a loop. That's a lot already just in terms of setup. Okay, pretty complicated. Okay, now we go into how to actually do it. Actually, the main loop programming is really straightforward. You get a bank switch, which, let me see if I can actually do this. See what I'm doing? On boot up, I held the bank switch, which now means I can define how many banks I want to use. If I'm only using 2 banks, why, have 10 available? And because it's a bank switch that only goes up, you'll always have to cycle through them. There's no bank down. So I can say I want 5 banks and confirm, and then banks 6 to 10 are not available. I actually only want 2 banks. And then I think I confirm with the program. Is that correct? Or do I hold it in? Yep. So on boot up, hold bank, select how many banks you want to scroll through, hold it again, and then you've determined the bank scroll number. Pretty neat. I'm thinking most applications, because of the shadow switch also, the shadow preset function, will not require more than 2 banks, but you have 10 available. Okay, so there's the now. It's always important to know what mode you're in. Now we're in preset recall mode. I can recall any preset I want, and as you can see, it switches all the pedals and left and the amp. It does all that. Now the pedal doesn't have a main bypass switch. There's no way to just say bypass. So what I'm doing is, on preset number 1 right here, I pretty much have everything turned off. Okay, and you could mute, of course, but what if we just want to play the amp clean? So on preset number 1, we're bypassing everything. And we're going to the La Boga, which is foot switch 1 is active, meaning the La Boga is clean, which you can also see on the blue LED. So I recommend doing that. Now, when you go into what's called rehearsal mode, which is pretty neat. You have direct control over any of the loops, and you can just play them like you're playing your pedals. Loop on, loop off, but you don't actually have to step on the pedals. Rehearsal mode is nothing other than programming mode. So you're pretty much going into programming mode, and you're operating the pedal. But once you leave programming, I can't say that, programming mode, anything you've done will be saved. So for that, I reserve preset number 2. If I want to just step around and I'm in a session and want to use something that's not pre-programmed, I just go into number 2, and there is something that I can change every time. So that's not something I have to remember what's on there. And that's then rehearsal mode. Now let's go into how to program that, or how to go into rehearsal mode. On the mute switch you see in white program, PGM. So you hold that in, and then a big P appears right here in the 1-digit display, which is a little bit of a drawback. Makes it easy because it's 1 digit, but makes it kind of difficult to show things that are 3 digits. So, which we need for MIDI. And here it's pretty straightforward. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and each of the buttons now represents a loop. So if I want my analog chorus to be on, I hit number 2, and you see that it lights up. Well, where does it light up? It doesn't light up here, which is, I don't quite understand why. You always have to be aware of where you are and what the lights are telling you. I will repeat this many times. We are in rehearsal mode. The lights on the individual numbers now represent what loops are on. But it's not represented here in the overview, okay? They're all off. I think it should also be on there. Can't hurt it. Okay, so number 2 means my chorus would be on, and right now we're looking at a compressor in number 1, the chorus, and we have all 3 Strymon pedals in the loops of both amps, and we're actually going to both amps. Anytime I play something, the La Boga is completely on your left, the Sur is completely on your right, so you know what's happening. And it's also left and right like it is in the display. So that's simple. You pick what loops you want on. Let's say we turn the timeline off, just the El Capistan on, and some compression and the chorus. And now you hold the programming button in again, and that's it. Now the lights above the individual switches will represent the preset you're on, which means preset number 2 on bank 1. And now in this display here on the overview, you can see what's going on. We're going to both amps. This is saying La Boga is still clean, and we have these 3 loops active. That's pretty straightforward. Let's go back into programming mode and look at switches and amp configuration. So I'm turning these off. So right now only the El Capistan is on, which wouldn't, phase the La Boga a single bit because it's in the loop of the Sur. So what if I want to program the switches? It's a pretty simple system. The switches are always latch type. I think if you need momentary, you have to use one of the 6, 7, and 8 switches. So to operate the switches, see here it says FS. I don't know if you can see this on the. Can you see that? No, you can't. Well, right here on the mute switch, it also says FS for foot switch. So if you click this several times, it'll go through any combination of foot switch 1 and 2. Right now, channel amp is on clean. So if I click it, it'll go to the second gain stage, which won't help us because the amp is still in clean. But now I click it again. Now the amp is distorted. And if I click it again, now it's distorted with the high gain setting. So there's both foot switches active, none, foot switch 1, foot switch 2, both, none. So you just go through it and pick whatever you want. If I want the amp distorted on gain setting 2, only number 2 needs to be on. Pretty straightforward. This, of course, could be a reverb on off. It could be channel 1, 2, 3. It could be any kind of switch that you desire. It could be a preset on a delay that you can determine. So anything you want to switch, you can. And if you need to, let me repeat that, there are 5 switches available, but it means you might lose loop number 6, 7, and 8 because they are in loop number 6, 7, and 8. Okay? Or they also function as foot switches. So, foot switch you determine in program mode by clicking, not holding, the foot switch mode, the mute button. If you push bank, you determine which output you're using, left or right. Very simple. Check this out. No output. Output right, output left, both outputs, no output. Pretty simple. Okay? Let's say only the left output. Let's say only the right output, which is the SIR, and we want to save this, so we're holding in. Bam. We've saved it. Right now it's just the SIR with the Al Capistan on the right output. That's it. So programming the actual loops is simple. Let me repeat. Hold in the mute button, or which is the program button. Pick what loops you want. Mute button determines the state of the triggers, which is only applicable for the La Boga right now. Okay. And bank button determines what output to use. And hold it in. Done. Okay, that is really simple. But obviously there's more. Now, MIDI functions. MIDI functions. What is MIDI? Now, we guitar players don't really know. Musical Instrument Digital Interface. MIDI. MIDI, Musical Instrument Digital Interface, was invented in 1983 for synthesizers, so that you didn't need control voltage to sync them up and stuff. And it's an 8-bit system that really hasn't changed since 1983. Really not a lot, actually probably nothing has really changed in it. And MIDI can control anything. It's just a language that says, do that, hold that, click that. Okay? You can tell your device it has these and these and these functions, and please control this with MIDI message 5, this with 7, this with whatever. And a very common MIDI word is program change. Since it's an 8-bit, I don't know if you need to know that, but since it's an 8-bit language and it's using the first bit as a status bit, so it's telling you what kind of MIDI word is coming, you only actually have 7 bits, and 7 bits can only encode 128 values. If you want to encode 0 as well, you only have 127 including 0. So most MIDI devices work from 0 to 127, and this is exactly how this works. Now, how in the world do you display 127 values with 1 digit? This is a little bit of a drawback of the GEC8 Live, and you will have to remember how to do this. And you'll probably go back and look it up again and again and again. But this is what I'm here for. This is why I'm here. This is what I'm here for. So, to go into MIDI program mode, you hit the bank and hold it. Okay? Now, the MIDI light is flashing. Okay, that's actually its only function. I wish it would kind of be on every preset that is sending MIDI messages, but right now it's just flashing, telling you that you are in MIDI mode. And what you're doing is, you can only send on 2 channels. Yes, is that a drawback? No, I don't know. I'm thinking, what if you're in a MIDI setup with a keyboarder and a different guitar player, and you need to actually, for some reason, have your device to be on a different channel than 1 and 2? It will require maybe a compromise. Very, very few situations where that probably is an issue, but I'm just saying you can only run MIDI channels 1 and 2, because that would mean you would have to have a way of actually picking MIDI channel 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So they don't do that, they just give you two pre-chosen, 1 and 2. Now, what's happening is you're going to pick a program change. Once you've picked it, it automatically goes to the program change for MIDI channel 2. Of course, if you have no device on MIDI channel 2, pick any number or pick no number. Now, how this is working, and in the manual it's described, I mean, I had to read it 7 times to get it, but then I did. Bank will choose the tens. The numbers here, 1 through 8, will choose the ones. If you're reading the manual, this is what it means. The tens meaning the decimal digits. So 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on. And the actual single digits, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 0, will be chosen by the 8 preset switches. Now, there's 8. How do you do 9 and how do you do 0? Okay, this is what you have to remember. 9 will be taken over by the mute switch, and 0 is the external switch. So even if you're not using it, as long as you're programming MIDI, while you're programming, you have to have the external switch connected. Well, unless you're not using any program that's a 0. Okay? So let me figure this out. I'm gonna go on my timeline, go to some bank. Let's see here. I'm gonna go up, bank 24, program A, which means it's bank 24. Each bank on the timeline has 2 presets, resulting in 2 program changes per bank. So bank 24, first preset, meaning I have to double it. So we're at 48. If I wanted to choose the preset B, second one, on bank 24, we would have to do 1 more, so times 2 plus 1. So it would be 48, 49. So 48 and 49 will be the 2 presets on bank 24 if you have a Strymon pedal. If you have the Strymon Big Sky, it's got 3 presets per bank. So if it says bank, 6, you're gonna have to do 18 for the A, 19 for B, and 20 for C. Okay? You're gonna have to figure out what your device wants. Most of the time it's removed by 1, you might have to add 1, subtract 1. It's trial and error, but you can do it. Come on. So what did I say? We needed 48. So this will show you the display, the 1-digit display will show you the decimal, meaning the tens. Okay? So we're gonna have to go to 4 with the bank switch. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bank switch on 4, meaning now we're in the 40s. And we need 48. That's easy. 48. Okay? And now I picked it. It immediately went away, and it's showing me the tens here with a little dot behind it. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little dot behind it, which means now we're picking the program change number for channel 2. We have nothing on channel 2 here. So, I mean, I'm getting more Strymon stuff, and then I probably want that. But right now, I could just set it to off. And then you pick any other off. 1 is still off. So now we're out of MIDI mode. No, we're not. We have to hold bank in, and now we're back to normal preset mode. So let's test this. We're gonna go to some other preset here. I go on 1, and it actually switched to trems, whatever that is. On my timeline, you can't even see. Can you see? Yeah, it's right here. It changed to the right, preset number A on bank 24. Let's try to do 49, which is called parapalapapalapalapala, something like that. Parapap, I don't know. So we enter in MIDI mode again by holding the bank switch. Apparently we're not. Ah, okay. I only clicked it, which of course changes the bank. So it's on 48. It actually is showing me that 4, 8. I want to do 49, which means 4, and then the mute switch. Now again, it's going to 0 dot, which means, you know, it's O dot, which means off. I'm going to push 1 again, so that was channel 2. So yeah, now it's showing me 4 and mute switch, which means 49. Hold bank again, and I'm going to switch something here. Going to switch back and forth, and we're on para pa 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 pa. Let's do this with 50. Whatever shows up. Let me see what should show up. It would be bank 25 degraded. It's called degraded. I'm holding in the bank switch to go to MIDI. 40, and I want a 0. Actually, no, I want 50. So we're gonna go to 5, and then I'm pushing the external switch, the shadow switch, which lights up green. And that is showing me that I'm on 5, 0. I just clicked 1 again to skip over channel 2. I'm holding this, switch somewhere else, and actually you can just re-trigger the MIDI. Here we go, and click, and we're on degraded, which is patch number A, bank 25. In our case, program change 50. If you played around with that a little bit, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, now we've covered MIDI, program change, only channel 1 and 2. Oh, no, we have not, I'm sorry. What if you want to go to something that is bank, program change 112? How do you do that? We're gonna enter MIDI again by holding bank. And if I scroll through the tens now, we're gonna 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. Can't go to 0 because that would be 1 through 10. Now 100 will be displayed by A. 110 is a lowercase b, because otherwise it'll look like an 8. 120 is C. So if I want to go to 127, I would, that's my highest, would be C7. So C7 is A, B, C, 100, 110, 120, 127. What happens if I try to do 128? Probably won't let me. I hope so. Let's try it. 128. Haha! It went to 0. Apparently 128 is 0. That's clever. You know, it loops around. Not too stupid. So we got 0, and then the external foot switch is on, which means 0, 0. We got patch number 0. Again, let's say 117. Okay? So that would be A is 100, B is 110, and hit the 7, so B7 is 117. Yeah, it's a little bit, you know, a workaround with the limitation of having only a 1-digit display, but it works. So, we're leaving MIDI mode. Sadly, I gotta say sadly, when you're in MIDI mode, no, let me show you. I'm gonna program, actually no I'm not, gonna go to number 2, And I'm gonna turn 7 on, 6 off, gonna go to my La Boga amp. Oh, okay. And just a compressor. So, now I've programmed the La Boga amp, which is left out, with the timeline on 7 and a compressor. I hold my mute switch to save that. And now I'm holding bank to go into MIDI. It's showing me that on this preset number 2, on channel 1, I'm picking 1/6, so 16 is my program change. But sadly, it turned all loops off. So if now I wanted to scroll through my timeline and say, okay, kind of cool, I want this ice organ, which is 22B, you have to pick which sound you want before you go into MIDI mode. You can't play around with the sounds and then say, okay, I want this, now program. Before you go into MIDI mode, you're going to have to determine what program change you want to program, because it's turning all loops off while you're in MIDI mode. So there's nothing going through the pedals whatsoever. Okay? There's a 22B. Yes, 22B. So that's 22, 44, one more for B is 45. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and save. Bump. And here on mirror something. And here we are on the ice organ. Works perfectly. Okay. But just be warned that once you enter MIDI mode, you can't test the MIDI device because it's not in the loops. So play around with it and figure out what patch you want to change to before you enter MIDI mode. We've looked at the foot switch, it's pretty straightforward. We looked at the outputs, how to program the loops, how to go into rehearsal mode. As I said, pick one of the presets that you always go to for rehearsal mode so you don't override the other ones, because it's, you know, pretty much program mode. Now we're gonna go to this little foot switch, which is very sturdy, but it is separate. Does it have to be separate? Does it have to be somewhere else on your board? I don't know. Don't know if there's a need for that, but that's the way it is. Because, as far as I understand, they wanted to use this emotion input, whatever that is called emotion. I'm sorry, but they didn't know what that was going to be used for. And then they came up with this really cool idea to put a second preset option behind each preset, and they needed a switch for that, so they delivered with it. It might have been a good idea to put that on the board, and it probably will be in future renditions, but it's also kind of neat maybe to have it somewhere else. So what happens is you have kind of like a second preset that you can program with this shadow switch. And let me show you how that's done. You're holding in, just like you're holding in bank to go into MIDI mode and holding in mute to go into program mode, you're holding in the shadow button or the shadow switch to go into the shadow preset. Okay, so you're gonna see an off right here, which means which means the mode is okay, so what it can do is it can send a continuous controller message on channel 1, or it can send a switching function on foot switch out 1. So that could be used. Now I'm not going to demonstrate that because I don't have a pedal that can do that. It could be used to send a latch open, latch close, momentary open or momentary close signal. You can pick that to a, let's say, delay, or even like an amp or whatever you want to. But you could use it to externally tap a tappable device that's somewhere on your pedal board, and you don't actually have to like reach over there and tap it. You can do that for that preset, programmable from the shadow foot switch. So that's very nice. You have to use foot switch 1 for that because it's attached to that, and then you actually choose one of the numbers 0, 1, 2, 3 to determine what kind of trigger signal it sends. It can send continuous controllers. What are continuous controllers? Well, actually on a keyboard, volume is a continuous control. A sustain pedal is a continuous control. Modulation, the little wheelie things next to the keys, those are continuous controllers. And a lot of devices give you control over a lot of parameters, which is kind of what I'm doing with these expression pedals. You could externally control pretty much almost anything on the timeline, including the looper and everything, but this isn't how far the GEC8 Live goes. It gives you 10 possible things you can do with it, which are pre-programmed, and I have to say 6 of them are only for Strymon pedals. I think this is a little bit narrow-minded. There are a lot of MIDI controllable pedals out there. What you can do is, let me read that to you. You can tap the tempo on line 6 or Eventide devices. You can tap the tempo, so it's a MIDI tap tempo, and we're going to do that, on a Strymon or Eventide device. You can turn the effects on line 6 and Eventide, or pretty much put it in bypass on Strymon and Eventide. And then for Strymon, for the timeline, you have a boost, 1, 2, 2 or 3 dB. And for the Mobius, you have 1, 2 or 3 dB boost that you can add from the Guitar Effects Commander 8 Live. I personally want more control over my continuous controllers. Let's say it's a start. The problem is making it programmable with the user interface we have, because you would need a much more complex interface and probably more than one digit. So, but let me show you the primary idea behind this. In the shadow preset, what you cannot do is, other than foot switch 1, manipulate the switching options. You can only use it for like a tap thing. But you can't, switch the amp, and you cannot control the left and right output. Okay? My fake tat is going down. See? Because I thought, I'm sporting fake tats for this because you see my arm and stuff, and I thought, hey, let's be super lame and have fake tattoos. Yeah! Because that's so metal. And lame. And I'm pretty lame. So that's why. Yeah, I really am. Oh my god, am I lame. So, where was I? Let me go out of it again. Okay. I'm gonna go to preset number 2, which is again the La Boga on clean, that's where it's gonna stay, and left output, and we have loop 1 and loop 7 active. So I go into shadow preset mode. Now, that's a drawback. That's something that I'm definitely going to criticize. It is not giving you feedback over what actually is programmed in the preset. Okay, why not showing you that? It doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. So, let me demonstrate. In normal programming mode, the lights on the individual switches show you which loops are active, not on the display here. No matter what loops are active, it doesn't show you. Okay? Now, if I go into shadow preset mode, first of all, there's no visual representation of what the actual preset is comprised of, what loops are on and off. And now, if I switch loops on and off, it shows you here not here, the light on the number 2 indicates that we're on preset 2, which for me, who cares? Okay, that's an information that at this point I don't need. The information I would need at this point is what loops are active in the actual preset I'm building a shadow preset for. So it should show you here, and it should just be the same thing, okay, as the other one. So I'm gonna go out of here again by holding the shadow preset button. You will have to remember loop number 1 and loop number 7. I go into shadow preset mode. If I now add loop number 2 and loop number 3, see they're on? They will come on in addition to loop number 1 and loop number 7 because they're already on in the normal preset. So hold it again to get out of here. So my preset number 2 has loop number 1 and loop number 7. If I push shadow preset, 2 more loops are gonna come active. So behind preset number 2 is the ability to add another loop, okay? Pretty neat. So you want to boost, add a delay. You could completely change the whole preset. Let's say I want to add these 2, but also turn loop number 1 off. Let's go into shadow programming mode. What I do is I will turn loop number 1 on. See that? Loop number 1 is on. But since it's on in the normal preset, it will be off. On and on will be off. Off and on will be on. And on and off will be Yeah, you know what I mean. Okay. So I leave here. So in the preset we got 1 and 7. In the shadow preset we got 1, 2, and 3. Which means 2 and 3 come on, and since 1 is active in both of them, it will cancel each other out. See? I got no problem with that function. I just criticize that you have to remember what's on in the preset so that when you're in shadow preset mode, you can do it, smartly. I find myself having to skip out of shadow preset mode frequently to look at what is on and off, which loops are active in the normal preset. Yeah, I think there's probably a better way visually to represent that. Like when you're in the shadow preset, I would like to see 1 and 7. So if I hit 1, it'll actually come off. Because what I'm doing now, by turning it on in the shadow preset, is actually de facto turning it off. Because both of them are on. See, it's not that intuitive. This is really not intuitive. It's programmable, it's doable, but it's not intuitive. Okay, why not just turn them on the way that they're on in the preset and then I manipulate it from here? So you could 1 on, 7 on, save. Since 1 and 7 are on in the normal preset, hitting the shadow preset will pretty much just give you bypass. That's another way to generate a bypass button instead of just having a whole preset for it. But it would only work on that preset. Okay, so let's say I'm in 5. That's nice. That's my plexitone, in this case the jitter, and the timeline. I want to kick in a compressor, turn on the gold standard, and turn the plexitone off. So I will need 4, 1, and hit 3 again to turn it off. Hit the shadow switch. What was that? 4, 3, 1, which means 1 and 4 come on. Since 3 is already on, it will be turned off. Okay, so 3 and 7 are on. If I hit the shadow switch, okay, so it's also, the amp is also on the lower distortion level. Okay, good. So as I said, you cannot manipulate the outputs with the shadow switch. And one last thing, how to do a continuous controller. As I said, you can do the boosts, you can turn the effect on the timeline on and off, which sadly there's no camera on it, so you can't really see it. But what I'm going to do is, you can actually see that in this camera, right there, you see the tap tempo. See it flashing in that okay. So I'm going to do, consulting my manual here, because these things, I tried that in the demo and it really backfired. You have to have that laminated somewhere in your case or in your, under your pedal board. Oh, talking about pedal board. This is, by the way, these are 2 Moen pedal bridge 2s to get put together in the middle, because that's a possibility. And each of them is featuring the Moen MIDI GEC8 isolated power supply. Okay, so this whole board is driven completely by 2 Moen power supplies. So it's got enough ins and outs and in high milliamp outputs to drive this whole board, including everything. Very neat and very red. So what I need is tap tempo Strymon, and that's number 1. Again, only on channel 1. Channel 2, nada. So I go into shadow. Where do I do this? In number 1. Okay, now let's go on number 2. We also turn it on. Shadow mode. And now with the bank switch, you pick your MIDI continuous controller option. Okay? And it should go from off to 0. Always distinguish between the lower O and the 0. So off, 0, 1, goes up to 9, and again off. So we want the 1 because that says tap tempo Strymon. And then I simply confirm with the mute switch. Now this next one that comes up with a little dot again is your option for the foot switch between 4 different options for latching momentary and stuff like this, which you need if you want to do a tap tempo in analog and not through MIDI. If you have like a Boss DD20 or something like that, that's totally doable. Or even any Strymon pedal that has a tap tempo input. Okay, but we're not gonna do that because, as I said, I don't have a pedal that can do that. And the Strymons already are all controlled with the expression pedals. So I skip out of this. Here's a problem. I wasn't smart. As you can see, the timeline absolutely responds to my MIDI tap, which is great, but also on preset number 2, I still have a shadow preset, meaning I'm actually doing something with the loops, and you don't want that because look at this. You're tapping and you're actually turning loops on and off. That's really dumb. So what you want to do is go into it and actually have nothing happening. No loops active or are not active, so it only functions for preset number 2 as a MIDI tap tempo. Okay, and we should try that. Oh. Let's add the other amp. And of course, some flint and El Capiston. Okay, one thing I want to test. Does it work to put a distortion that's in loop number 2 through to the sewer, even though loop number 5 is not actually on? So we're going to take number 3 and program it. We're going to take 7, 8, all of them off. We're going to only go to the right one. And we're going to go and take the Hornet. Yes, it works. So I can't explain to you why that works, but it does. And that's neat! So I've got all the distortion stuff before both amps, in front of both amps, and stuff in both effect loops, and I can control it all from my GEC8 Live. Once you get through how to do it, and you get used to it, and it's going to take you a while, so come back to this if you want to, this is gonna make a great switcher for your board. And let's be frank. I mean, I'm not Frank. Maybe you're Frank, but God, that's such a fucking lame joke. I mean, let's be honest. Who has a board this stupidly big and complex? Okay? That's a little bit overkill. I mean, it's pedal board porn, but it's a little bit too much. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drives on it, and a vibe and a chorus and a tuner and 2 compressors, because you know you need that, and it's got quite a bit. So you probably don't have that. Okay, now my legs are completely asleep, and that was it for my whole Moen GEC8 Live series. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you later.